Hey Sharks members and fans, Nicho Hynes here. Welcome to our first ever mental fitness round. We have Gus Worland here from Gotcha4Life. Gus, thanks for coming on.
Nicho, thanks for having me in your beautiful dressing room, mate. It's awesome in here.
Yeah, it's nice.
Fans like me don't get an opportunity to come in here too often, and I wanted to thank the Sharkies. Thanks for including us in your first mental fitness round. Gotcha4Life's very important work. Every single day we lose too many Aussies, so you guys talking about it, us putting out in the big stage in the NRL game is absolutely awesome for us. So thanks on behalf of Gotcha4Life.
That's very exciting. Thanks for being here, and thank you for being a part of it and your crew. And I guess we're going to touch a bit more on it over this chat. And very grateful to have you in our inner sanctum. So
good on you, mate. Well, from your point of view, let's talk about footy for a while. Why is the game such an important part of your life?
Well, it's been a big, important part of my life since I was a kid, and I think it's how I connected with my dad a lot growing up. He was the coach and he played a lot. I connected with all my best mates. All I remember from a young kid is just going down to the footy oval after school and practicing and kicking the ball around with my best mates, playing it at school. And yeah, I think the most important thing to me is the connections and the relationship you make along the way. Obviously the footy is the most important thing come game day and the competitiveness I have, but the relationships you build, the connection you get to culture. I've had a lot of connection to my culture through rugby league, and then the next thing is for me now inspiring the next generation of kids who come through, and not only the kids, but inspiring the Australian community of you can go through hard times to get to where you are, and that's what sports people can do for people.
Yeah, totally. And the fact you're on such a wonderful, big screen to be able to do it as well. If they think that you're big and tough and you show emotion, then perhaps they can do the same thing.
That's right, and that's a value I hold very close to myself, is being authentic and genuine and wearing my heart on my sleeve. And I'm a bit of an emotional man, and but that's okay, and that's the message we try to send. I know you try to send as well, and being authentic and true to myself and trying to make a difference is the most important thing.
I think the manliest thing you can do is actually be human, and being human means you go through ups and downs, you go through highs and lows, and the thing is you go through as a sporting man, even at my level, the simple fact is I love to do something in a team, win and lose and stuff, and that means you have to be authentic and real, but that's hard for a lot of us to come around to. We think we need to hide the stuff that's not so good.
It is hard, and especially in a team environment, a footy club, and I think 15, 20 years ago, it would be very hard for a male to come out and tell their teammate they're not doing well. And but I think it's starting to change in this generation. It's starting to change, and in a locker room, we're starting to talk a bit more about our feelings and checking in on one another, and that's a great thing to do, And look, probably the old generation, the past players probably think that, I don't know what you're doing in that locker room now, but times are changing and we're looking after each other a hell of a lot more. And I feel like the younger kid who's coming through just after school, going through a tough time, is more open to coming up to one of our senior players to say, you know what, I'm not doing too well. So that's always a good thing.
We're learning from stuff, right? The numbers when it comes to suicide, just let's talk about that for a moment. 7 men a day every day, 2 women every day. 9 Aussies that woke up this morning won't wake up tomorrow morning. And you think about 65,000 attempt to take their life every single year, twice the numbers in terms of Indigenous. So we're not doing something right. We need to change the way that we do things. And I think your generation are more likely. I've got a son a little bit younger than you. You're more likely to talk about your feelings than I ever would. Yeah. And so we are getting there, but there's a lot of work still to be done.
Yeah, we are getting there. And hearing all those numbers it's unbelievable. Like it's just ridiculous. And obviously there's past trauma in some kids' lives or in people's lives that they haven't dealt with, and we're trying to open that up and make sure that people go out and start speaking about some past trauma or their feelings, what they're going through. And sports people today are doing a pretty good job. Can we do better? Definitely. We can always do better. And people like yourself, Gus, and all these other mental health organisations are doing a really good job. So, we're haven't arrived anywhere yet, and there's still plenty more movement to go, but I feel like we're on the right track.
I remember when I first started Gotcha4Life, it was through a mate of mine who had taken his own life, and it took me a long time to even talk about it. And eventually, 6 years in, on Triple M breakfast with Matty Johns and Mark Geyer, 2 big bullfed rugby league players, and we tended to try to make people laugh on their way to work. We didn't necessarily want to take them down a path of sadness or real emotion. But I remember one morning, 4:30 in the morning, which is when we all arrived at Triple M, and we had to build a show at 6 o'clock that would be there for 3 hours. And I said to them, boys, I want to talk about my mate who took his own life.
Yep.
And they were like, oh, we're going there. And I went, well, I've been wanting to talk about it for years, but I haven't had the guts to actually ask you boys about it.
Yep.
So 8 o'clock news, straight out of that, hit the switch and spoke about my friend. We had 90 minutes of phone calls back to back on Triple M with people going, thank you so much. Can I tell you about my friend now? It just opened up this I suppose, safeness to be able to talk about it. Everyone wanted to, but they never felt like they could talk about it. And I think rugby league can play a big part in making sure that people do open up to at least someone so they don't worry alone.
Yeah, well, all it takes is, like you say, then just one person to talk about it, and I feel like in a lot of workplaces or footy clubs, everyone's sort of going through something and thinking the same thing, and all it just takes is one brave person to come out and say something, right? And and I feel like it's starting to happen a lot more. But I want to ask you now, how did you feel after you did have that conversation on the Triple M?
Well, it took me a while to actually get the guts up to ask Maddie and MG, who are both sort of, them, they're both big, burly rugby league players. And our show was very much just, let's get everyone to work with a laugh.
Yeah.
Let's not necessarily drag people down into an emotional state. But they were like so thankful that we went there because our show showed a bit more depth there. We weren't just relying on Maddie telling jokes, which is what we tended to do. So that was incredibly powerful for me. And then those boys just said, right, what can we do? They've been ambassadors ever since. Whatever I ever need from them, they're very happy to do. And I was able to do a show called Man Up on the ABC, which challenged masculinity and sort of questioned why we lose so many blokes to suicide. And then from that, Gotcha4Life was started. And, it's the most important work that I'll ever do, and Maddie and MG are both very much part of that now. Whatever they can do with their profiles to help, because they've got, MG's got 5 kids, Maddie's got a couple.
Yeah.
Simple fact is that we're going through stuff as parents now that we never went through or even spoke about. So we are getting better, and your generation and people like Steve Smith, people like yourself, if you talk about it in a way that's not too, it's more normalised, then more likely perhaps other people do the same.
That's right. And I think on Matty and his sons, Cooper Johns, I played down in the Melbourne Storm with him, and he's been a really good advocate for it now after learning a lot about it. And he often texts in on me, and he knows I have some down days, and he texts on me if I have a bad game or going through a little bit. So he's been really good at it. So and Cooper wouldn't have experienced any of that stuff growing up in Matty's household because he's a larrikin, and they have a podcast and they do all the funny stuff, So it's really good to see that someone like Cooper, whose dad had to experience something through you, and then people start to talk about it more, and start checking in on each other. And so that's all it takes. And what about the Gotcha4Life? What made you call it that name?
Well, I was going back and forth with all my mates, basically saying, I want to call it something that people will get. And one of my mates goes, yeah, I gotcha. Another one goes, gotcha. Well, I've got you. We've got each other for life. Yeah. What about Gotcha4Life? So we bumbled and fumbled our way to it, really, over a cup of coffee one morning. And it's incredible, actually, what's happened with my group of mates is that we're now having not lots of discussions that are deeper, but we know we can go there sometimes. A mate of mine turned up at a Sunday walk the other day, which is sort of 6 or 7 hours from school. And we go, g'day, brother, and we're all giving him a hug, and we start off our walk. And he just sort of tugs me on my shirt. He goes like this. He goes, not going too good today. I said, do you want to just back away, just you and I, or do you want to have the chat with the boys? And he goes, I want to chat with the boys. So he's got enough guts now to do that, whereas a year ago, no way he would have done it.
Yeah.
So I said, boys, the big fella needs to have a chat, and of course, there's some nonsense thrown, there's back and forth, there's all that banter that you get in a dressing room, but the key thing is we love him. We don't want him to be going through any stress.
Yeah.
And how much guts is it for a bloke? How gutsy is it for a bloke to open up and say, hey, I don't have the answers. Can you help me? So we talked for an hour and a half, and then we went for a cup of coffee, and then everyone's checking in with him this week. He's now told us that he's got the guts up to do what he needs to do.
Yeah, that's unreal.
Imagine if he was worrying alone about that,
I know.
which was what most blokes tend to do.
That's right.
So we need to have those discussions. And your generation, I think, are more likely to have them than perhaps my generation. I'm 55, and my dad never had those chats with me.
Yeah, no way. I feel like our generation now, when we get to an age, say we're all your age at the time, since we're all going through now, we'll probably learn a little bit more about it. Then we'll be able to teach our kids, and the kids will start teaching their kids. So I feel like we'll be in a good stead, although, as we say, we've still got plenty of movement. I love the way they got you that. I reckon that's one of the best names I've heard for a mental health organisation. And then, what is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome, mate.
So thank you, mate. Well, we like most good ideas, we bumbled and fumbled our way there, you know, and we were trying not to be too clinical. And that's why that is so great. And I know you young blokes tend to hug more than shake hands, whereas older generations, in my dad in his 80s, it's a shake of the hand. And I have to bring him in, you know, for that hug. Yeah. You blokes are more likely to go there. So we thought, well, that's a good thing because it's more than a handshake, and then you can normally bring each other in for that hug.
That's right. Yeah, I like it.
Yeah,
that's awesome. You've done well there.
What about? Thanks, mate. what about you and your life? You know, you've had, you know, if people looked at your career and your life, they would say that you're very successful. You've done well. You've ticked a lot of boxes, but there's been moments where you've had your moments of mental unfitness. Yep. How have you got through that?
That's a good question. Like, there's times there where I was like, oh, I don't know if I will get through this, you know, and there's times where I felt like I was good as gold and I didn't need any help anymore, but it took a turn. Like, it takes different turns every single day, and well, it did, and I tried to see counsellors and different counsellors, but it just wasn't, the certain one wasn't working each time, and then you get to a stage where you're like, a day out from going to see the counsellor, and you've had a few good days in a row and you're going like, I don't need to see this person anymore. So you sort of try and find an excuse not to go see him, and then a week later you have a few bad days in a row and then you're like, you know, you should have went and seen them, you know. Like, just because when you're feeling at your best, you still need to go see them when you're at your best, not just when you're at your lowest. And so I had a bit of a roller coaster ride there for a while, but I had a few hard truthful conversations with some people that are close to me, and you know, they sort of told me to wake up to myself, and I can still chase that dream that I wanted to chase, and that was being an NRL player. And but my biggest healing, if you will, was when I started working at a primary school in Mackay, and as a teacher aide, and I was still seeing counsellor and whatnot. I was still doing all the tools I needed to do, but the school that I went and worked at was a bit of a low socioeconomic area. The kids who had a bit of home life trouble and whatnot, and I just rocked up to school every single day, and these kids come up to me smiling, and like, they could have been going through something so much worse than I would. I wouldn't even know, but they ran up every day saying, Mr. Hynes, and they're like, look at this, I've done this well in class today, and they were just so happy to be around me. And I just sort of woke up to myself and looked at them and just went, far out, like, these kids could be going through so much I don't know about, and they're so happy to see me every single day. You know, like, they're changing my life more than I'm changing theirs. And I just had a bit of a slap me in the face moment. I was sort of just like, wow, wake up to yourself, Nicho, and go out there and kick some goals and do these kids proud. And then, yeah, like, my brother, my mum, my dad, and the close friends and that were awesome. Like, I would ring mum and my brother a hell of a lot, like nearly every second day, telling them I wanted to come home and stop chasing the dream. But they got me through it, and as good family members do, they did. And but yeah, I think the moment I look back on, like, a sliding door moment, was when I went to that school to work there, and they made me realise that there's more to my life than what I was feeling at the time. And yeah, I can't thank those kids enough, really.
They probably will see that now, some of them, and go, they didn't even realise it.
Yeah, they wouldn't even realise at all.
What about the fact that you've mentioned a few times there that you had a bit of a village around you, you know, whether it was your mum or other family members and so forth? That's what we're trying to get across at Gotcha4Life, and this is why this mental fitness round is so important, is that you can't win a game of footy. You can't beat the Dragons on the day by yourself. Mm-hmm. You might be the last one to kick the field goal or kick the conversion to win the actual game, but nothing would have happened if Nicho Hynes was the only one out there against 13 Dragons. Yeah. So the life, doing it by yourself is difficult, and you've got to build people around you, whether they're professionals or family members, and be a bit vulnerable to let them in so they can help you. That's the main thing for Gotcha4Life, and the main thing about this game. We want to get people to get that in their heads.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Like, I moved in with a guy named Aaron Booth, and he was like, it was massive for me. Like, he was my soul village at the time, you know, and I wouldn't be sitting here today with you if it wasn't for Aaron Booth. And then, yeah, like you said, you got to build those people around you that you can trust and you can feel so comfortable talking to. And, you know, now, like, I can call them at any hour of the day and just get vulnerable with them because I've just built that village around me. And it's so important. Like, and sometimes when you're going through that depression stage or anxiety, whatever it is, like, you feel like you can't build that village, but realistically, those people that are close to you care about you and they want you to be vulnerable. And I think it's so important to build that village, like you're saying. But I built my village, and like I can't thank them enough. And the way you said it about going out in the field, like you can't do it on your own. You can't do anything on your own. If you're a bricklayer, you can't go lay all those bricks on your own. You need a team around you. So I think that's a really important message you said there, Gus.
And I think also, Nicho, that the fact is life is better with other people. If you can, we celebrate all the good stuff together. Why don't we also have moments where things aren't so good? You can get a group of people around you, and that builds connection. It builds, a relationship with someone that's so much deeper. I've got so many brothers. I've got one brother. I've got heaps of brothers. I've got 10 brothers that I've decided are my guys, and vice versa. And I never want any of those blokes warring alone.
Yeah.
I want those blokes to feel they can ring me, like you said.
Yeah.
That person anytime, knowing that they've got your back and there's no judgment. And I think we need to learn that. And I think if we do that as a society, we're more likely to open up about what's truly worrying us, and we can get this suicide rate down to zero. Like, I know when I say that out in the media, people give it to me. It's like, well, one's too many.
Yeah.
Like, just imagine walking down the garden path and getting a knock on the door and someone saying you've lost a loved one to suicide, and it happens 9 times today in Australia, and it'll happen 9 times tomorrow, plus thousands of people attempting.
I hate hearing that.
Yeah, and that's when I didn't even know all of these stuff. When I spoke to Maddie and MG on the Triple M radio that morning, I had no idea that I was opening up a whole new life for myself, but also I didn't know the stats. And then you open yourself up then to all this other stuff that comes, and you realise that, you've got to be out there and use your profile as much as you can for good.
That's right. And the hardest thing for me to hear as being a proud Indigenous man is you said it's double for Indigenous people that commit suicide. So it just makes you think, like, why we're not doing more in community, like in First Nations people, they're the traditional owners of this land. So that breaks my heart to hear that. Obviously, it breaks my heart to hear that everyone in Australia, all those stats, but especially Indigenous people. So that's really hard to hear. And you did say before about the judgment, and like that was a big fear of mine, of being judged and the embarrassment feeling. But I feel like if someone's going to judge you, then they're going through their own personal stuff at the time. So, and then it's opening up a conversation for them as well, and then they go and look in the mirror that night and go, far out. The reason I'm judging them is because I've got my own sort of stuff going on at the moment. So, and it creates more conversation anyway, so...
Nicho, I talk a lot about 90% of the time, let's live the way we've lived, banter, fun, jokes, taking the mickey, all that stuff. That's awesome. But there's got to be a piece of us where we learn enough about each other to go, you know what, I'm not going too good. Who are my people? Hey, mate, I need your help over here. And then that builds even better good times for the 90% of the time. But don't do life without that 10% where you're really vulnerable and open to people that are there to help you. And as soon as I open myself up, a lot of people come, and a lot of people I can't help because I just can't get to everyone. But I just don't want anyone to worry alone, and that's really where we get ourselves in trouble.
That's right.
Once you opened up to your mate, your life was better.
Yeah, instantly.
Because they'd look at you and go, look at you flying. You're playing footy, you're going to be a professional football player, you're not bad on the eye, blah, blah, blah. And they think,
you hear that, girls?
He's got nothing to worry about here. And I don't want to be that whinger that has all these opportunities and other people haven't got. The thing is, everyone's got their own shit.
Yeah. Well, now you say that, like I remember when I went through it, and the embarrassment feeling I had was, I was popular at school. I was a footy boy, I went all right with the girls, like all these things that led to like, why me, But the thing is that I struggle with is like, people are going to be looking at me going like, Nicho, what's wrong with your life? You're a good footy player, you have a lot of friends, you're popular, like, how can you go through like that? But it's like, I look at that now and go, Nicho, you idiot. Like, everyone goes through their shit and they're allowed to go through their shit.
You're human. It doesn't discriminate,
Yeah, that's right. And like, it doesn't bug me, but when I try and pull people up on it when, like, say where you have a yarning circle or whatever and someone tells a story and the person after it says, well, I don't really want to tell my story because mine isn't as bad as that, but it's like, no, like your story is important to you and you went through that hardship because you're feeling it. You're human, you feel something. Just because it's maybe not as perspective or perceived as tough as Jim's story before you, you still went through that and you still dealt with that. So it's hard for you and your family, you know. And
Yeah.
I just don't like when people say like, oh, maybe I shouldn't say it because your story sounds tougher than mine. We can't have that.
It's the mental fitness, right? So that's why changing it from mental health to mental fitness. Like if you and I went for a run right now, you'd be able to run a lot further than me because you've practiced, you're younger, you're an athlete, right?
Yeah.
So there might be some stuff that I can do better than you. The simple fact is that I'm there to support you with what you need and you're there to support me for what I need. And that's really what it's all about, building mental fitness and a sense of community where you can talk about anything, warts and all, without any fear of judgment.
Yeah, that's right.
Having a group of mates around you that you can be totally yourself with is the greatest, I reckon it's the greatest joy you can have.
Yeah, for sure.
And not enough of us do that. And if we do have that, we never open ourselves up to it.
Yeah, that's right.
We worry alone about stuff because we don't want to drag the group of mates down. We don't want to be that person that upsets the apple cart. It's like, nah, we love you, warts and all, mate.
Yeah,
So
100%.
give us, your mates coming out and see you carve them up, beautiful. See you get picked for State of Origin, see you do your thing. But hey, if you're going through tough stuff, they want you to tap them on the shoulder and say, hey, I need your help.
Definitely.
Not enough of us do the negative stuff or the so-called, but it's the human stuff that we need help with more than anything.
What about something that I struggle with sometimes is when someone comes up to you and maybe on social media or says, Gus, I'm not doing well. And obviously, like, some of us aren't professionals. So what would you say and how do you point them in the right direction?
So for me, I've tooled myself up now with all the different courses and stuff that you can do, but still at the end of the day, I'm at the stage where if in terms of like an injury, if you scraped your knee, I'd know what to do there.
Yeah.
But if you pull a hammy or something, you go and see a professional, right? A physio or whatever it might be. Well, that's exactly the same with these emotional muscles or these invisible muscles in your melon.
Yeah.
So I'd go, thank you so much for sharing with me. You're not worrying alone about that anymore. So I'm on the team, right? So
Yeah.
what are we going to do about it? So we then go and get the support and stuff that we need. For that person to show that type of vulnerability and tell you that they're going through something and they're not quite sure, that's not for you to have the answer. That's for you to go, thanks for telling me. Let's go and get the answer together. Just like you're a team out there at Shark Park, you're going to team now with that person.
Yep.
And I've had that many people, you know, because I've become a beacon for mental fitness now. People say, I want your help with this. I'll have a directory of people. I'll speak to the parents. I'll say, this is the right person to talk to. You're not worrying alone anymore. We're all on this journey together.
Yep.
Doesn't mean you have to take it all on. You don't have to be the one that comes up with the answers, but you can help them along the journey. So that's what I tend to do, is really respectfully say, thanks for telling me. Now I'll go and help you get the help that you need.
Oh, that's really good advice.
Yeah.
Yeah, because sometimes even my teammates will receive messages and, you know, like if they've put out there that they're a big advocate for mental fitness, you know, and then they come to me sometimes, Nicho, I don't know how to handle this though. Like, and sometimes I'm like, well, I'm not a professional either, but I'm an advocate for it and I want to help you. It's just like, I don't have all the answers. So I think that's really good advice for me there. So I have my daily routines that keep me in check and I go through every day to make sure that my mental fitness is on track. What about anything you do?
Well, I changed my life, actually. It was with Freddie Fittler away in the country about 3 years ago. And Freddie said, right, we're going to own the first 3 minutes of your day. And I'm like, oh, okay. Because what I do at the moment is I wake up, the alarm is my phone. I then pick my phone up, take it off the power, and I start strolling.
Yeah.
You know, I've got 2 kids at the moment in London. So I'm checking in to see if they're okay. They might have been having a chat whilst I was asleep. And then I'd go, I might as well check my emails. I might as well check socials.
Yeah.
So before I know it, I've wasted the first bloody 20 minutes of my day.
Yeah.
So Freddie goes, don't have your phone by your bed, have an alarm clock. So we actually went and bought 1,000 alarm clocks and gave them to kids out of the country.
Yeah.
So we gave them, and the kids are looking at them and going, what's this? Like, I don't even know what an alarm clock looked like. And we said, no, this is what's going to wake you up now, because your phone's downstairs or some other part of your room, powering up with your mum's and dad's phone. Everyone's doing this together. It's not just kids, right?
Yep.
So turn off the alarm, go to the loo, wash your hands, come back and make your bed. And then sit on your bed, and where your phone used to be is a glass of water. So you have the glass of water, and you either scull it or you take a couple of sips or whatever. Take a minute or so to drink that, then breathe for a minute. In through the nose, out through the mouth for 1 minute. And that's 3 minutes basically. That's you owning the first 3 minutes. You're hydrating yourself, you're getting a bit of breathing going, and you're not just going straight into socials or text messages or emails or whatever it might be. So that's something that I do now regularly. And my kids, it was like World War III, believe me, trying to get it over the line, but I got it over the line with a very supportive wife. And that's what we all do now. So that's the one thing that I do, and I never worry alone anymore. And I'm not at all worried about telling someone that I'm going through something. A lot of people don't tell someone how they're going if it's negative because they don't want to worry them. They don't want to, I should be handling my own stuff. Well, the thing is, once I've built my village, it's an open slather. They can talk to me anytime and I can talk to them. And that way, sometimes I'm thinking about things in my head, Nicho, and I'm like, oh, that's really bad. And then I just say it out loud to my mate and he goes, oh, mate, same thing happened to me the other week, or a mate of mine. And it's like, well, it just makes it a bit easier.
Yeah, that's right.
But if it is something heavy, then all of a sudden I'm sharing it, right? With my mate who has told me that he loves me, warts and all. So we're going to get through this stuff together. And that's what I'm trying to build with Gotcha4Life, is this mental fitness. Get mentally fit, just like you're physically fit. Let's have that mental fitness so you don't worry alone. And if we do that, then we can really get this suicide rate down. And 0 might be a pipe dream, but I'm not stopping until I'm 6 foot under.
Yeah, I love to hear that. And you think it's important for people to have daily routines for their mental fitness?
For sure. I mean, that first 3 minutes for me is absolutely key because that sort of sets me up. But I've also practiced it now. Like everything, you know how to do what you do and your shark teammates do because you practice it every day and you're
Build
good
habit,
at it.
You build a good habit.
Build a good habit and it becomes second nature and so forth. So, but I know when I go and talk to blokes in particular, they talk about how hard it is to be completely vulnerable. They don't want to show that side of them. Well, the stats will tell you that that's not working. Doesn't mean we have to burst into tears every 5 minutes. It doesn't mean we have to have a deep and meaningful conversation every time we talk, but it means that we do have someone that we can talk to about the stuff that's really important.
You don't have to blurb it out to social media. You don't have to tell a big group. Just tell a couple people and
Exactly.
just instantly start to feel a little bit better.
Exactly. And you're just sharing it so it gets out of your head, which is super important. You know how important that bloody headspace is. So once that's out, and believe me, Nicho, I've spoken to the smartest people on the planet, the most successful people on the planet, and they're all just like you and I. We have good days, bad days. We have days where we get disappointed in ourselves, how we've reacted to something. Other days you're flying. That's being a human being, and we're going away from that too much. We're trying to be perfect, and social media certainly puts us in that place where
I was going to bring up social media just then now you say it, because like everyone looks at it and thinks, for example, Taylor Swift just come to Australia, you know, she's the biggest pop star in the world at the moment. Everyone thinks she has such a perfect life, but in the background, we have no idea. Everyone posts on social media what they're doing good. They never really post what they're not doing good.
That's right.
Like, and it's always the happy photos and the smiling and the laughing and all your friends having a good time. And, you know, like there's probably a select few that might post them not doing too well, but that's just a big facade. You know, you never know what's going on.
That's right.
Like, and the next generation of people are looking at their megastars thinking their life is so perfect. But
and I need to be as perfect as that.
That's right, but they could be going through something we don't know about. So the power of social media is just insane, isn't it?
The real life is, I always say, is sort of the couple of minutes before the photo and a couple of minutes after the photo. Like, could be in the best restaurant in the world, and I'm sure you've been at a couple of lovely dinners where you've just gone, mate, how good's this? The beautiful view, and you know, it is great. But at the end of the day, it's a steak, it's a salad, it's the people that you're with that are the key. Like, who really cares if it's a beautiful looking out over, blah, blah, blah. It's those connections of the people that you're with and stuff that are absolutely key. And yeah, social media is not real life, but a lot of youngsters in particular think it is and think, oh, I'll never have that. So they get really down on themselves around it, and then they worry alone about it, and that's when we get the problems. So yeah, I think building that emotional muscle is probably the biggest key for Gotcha, and that's why events like this with blokes like you, talking with vulnerability is so important, because if they look at you and they look, or someone like Hugh Jackman, or they look at Steve Smith, if you're a cricket fan, and they're all going through ups and downs and they're going through life and it's normal, then all of a sudden it's okay for them to be normal too, and I think that's really cool.
Yeah, big time. Now my big goal and dream would be for the NRL to have a mental fitness round, mental health round, however we want to call it. Do you think we can get there? I know, like right now, having the Sharks do our first ever mental fitness round, I think it's going to be massive, and it's been something I've been driving for a little while. What do you think? Do you think we can get there in the NRL, and how important for you to be here right now with us to have a mental fitness round?
This is gold. This is gold. So, you know, I'm a massive sports fan, massive rugby leagues fan. I want a mental fitness round in the NRL for sure. That would be, for me, very, very big. I think this sport has got such a wonderful way of bringing people together, and it's in such a positive way that you can have quite a difficult conversation, but in a really sort of positive arena like this is. So for me, it's awesome. We've got the Roosters and Manly play for the Gotcha4Life Cup, and that's, you know, blokes that you would know, like the Travojeviches and Teddy and so forth. Very much like you, open to vulnerability, but just outstanding out there on the field. They all get behind it. We've been doing that for a few years. This is the first mental fitness round now that we're doing with you guys. I would like it to be right across the NRL, because I don't think there's a more important conversation to be had, where there's so many young men and women and so many young boys and girls that are perceived to be tough because they're playing rugby league, to be able to show that vulnerability is actually strongest suit that you can ever have. And this will just start the conversation again. I'll speak to what I call Sir Peter Volandis and say, Pete, you know, you're an action man, you get stuff done.
Yeah.
Let's have a mental fitness round for everyone, and let's build that up. And that's certainly what we're striving for. And we want to thank the Sharkies and the Dragons for being a part of this one.
Yeah, hopefully we can kickstart something special here at the Sharks by having this round. And I know a lot of my team members are going to be looking forward to it. I know everyone at Gotcha4Life, we're looking forward to it. So hopefully everyone can get around, and then we can start something really special. It would be nice.
Bloody oath. So just quickly before I let you go, vulnerability for you is a strength now because you've been through stuff, and I think that's what we want to get across to everyone is talking about your feelings. Traditionally has been, oh mate, I don't want to drag you down with my troubles, I should handle my own stuff. That doesn't work, does it?
No, not at all. Like I have I call it a truth box at home. It's my sauna.
Okay.
You know? And like if I feel like my mates are aren't being truthful, or they're not going so well, whatever it is, or anyone that's close to me, you know, let's go in the truth box, have a sauna, you know. And I just feel like people out there need to find their truth box, or they need to find their space where they can have that conversation, because vulnerability is so important, being authentic to who you are. And there's just no point anymore just holding it in, because we're living in a life now where it's just too important for us to hold things in. Let's speak out, let's be authentic, let's be vulnerable, and get around each other, because it's a better world we're living in when we're all vulnerable and looking after each other. And our younger people are going to come through and live their life rather than wanting to take their own life. So
bloody oath. I mean, I'm 55. Took me a podcast to tell the world that my dad doesn't say he loves me. Now, I know he loves me. Like, he's proven that. He's shown that with action. But that's who he is, right? He grew up in the fact, well, I'm an action guy, so I don't need to say the words. So he rang me and goes, what's this rubbish about saying I don't love you? I said, no, I didn't say that, Dad. I know you love me, but you don't say I love you.
Yeah.
And he goes, that's an absolute nonsense. And I said, well, it's fact, like it's true. And he goes, I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you. He said, I'm going to say it 96 more times. So the next times I'll see you, next 100 times I'm going to say it. Do I need to keep saying it? Like, we laughed about it and we had a joke about it. Simple fact is, it's not for everyone to say those words, and that people are more about action. It's more about having enough guts to talk when things are starting to go a bit south, you know, and having enough people around you, and even if it's just one, so you're not worrying alone. And if we get that message out to everyone here that sees this interview or watches the game when you play the Dragons, I don't think there's a more important conversation to be had than being vulnerable and real, you know. And vulnerability should be seen as a strength
for sure,
rather than what it has traditionally been a weakness.
I appreciate that.
Right.
Thanks, Gus.
Good to see you, mate.
Thank you very much.